Hello, I'm standing in St Mary's churchyard in Upper Froyle, just down the road from where I grew up and next door to where I'm currently holding a 5-day retreat. And today is World Religion Day, so I thought I would say something about the non-dual understanding or perennial philosophy that underlies and is the source of all the great religious and spiritual traditions. If we were to design an AI program to read all the texts and scriptures of all the great religious and spiritual traditions over the last 3,000 years or so, and were to ask it to distill the essence of all these texts into a single sentence, one of its versions would read something like this: peace and happiness are the very nature of our being, and we share our being with everyone and everything. We have two types of experience: our interior experience of thoughts and feelings, and our exterior experience of perceptions, activities, and relationships. And this statement addresses both these aspects of our experience in relation to our inner experience of thoughts and feelings. The non-dual understanding, the perennial philosophy, suggests that peace and happiness are the very nature of our being or our self. And in relation to our exterior experience, it suggests that we share our being with all people, all animals, all things, and all of nature. In other words, there is a single, infinite and indivisible being from which everyone and everything derives its apparently independent existence. Now, we might object to the statement that peace and happiness are the very nature of our being, arguing that we experience ourself or our being all the time. That is, everybody always has the sense of being myself. And if peace and happiness were the nature of ourself, then if we are experiencing ourself all the time, then surely we should experience peace and happiness all the time, and this is obviously not the case. So the non-dual understanding suggests that whilst everybody knows their self to a degree, not everybody knows their self clearly. Not everybody knows their essential self, and it is for this reason that the peace and happiness that are the nature of ourself are not always available to us. In other words, everybody knows their self, but not everybody knows their self clearly. And it is this lack of clear self-knowledge that is responsible for the veiling or the obscuring of our innate peace. And it is for this reason that so many traditions emphasize, at least in the early stages, self-knowledge. As we begin to explore ourself, the first layer of experience that we encounter are thoughts, but no thought is essential to us and therefore cannot constitute our essential self or being. All thoughts appear, exist briefly and then vanish, therefore no thought qualifies as ourself. Likewise, our feelings They last a little bit longer than our thoughts, but all feelings arise, exist briefly, and vanish. The next layer of experience we encounter are sensations. Sensations of the body, the tingling sensation at the soles of our feet, the temperature of the air on our skin, the experience of hunger or thirst, the experience of pain or pleasure. All of these, however intimate or intense they may be, are not permanently with us. The essence of anything is that aspect of that thing that cannot be removed from it. And all sensations, however intimate or intense they may be, are impermanent. They appear, they exist, they vanish, and therefore cannot be essential to what we are. So as we travel back through the layers of our experience in this way, discarding everything that is not essential to us, we eventually arrive at the simple experience of being aware. And divested of the qualities that our being derives from the content of experience, that is, from our thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, perceptions, and so on. Our being is unqualified, unconditioned, and as such, unlimited. Whilst our thoughts may be agitated, whilst we may feel a sense of lack, these qualities of agitation and lack, they pertain to our thoughts and our feelings. They are not essential to our self. Prior to thoughts and feelings, our essential self is transparent, empty, silent, still, at peace, and whole, complete, lacking nothing. And thus its nature is said to be peace and happiness, not a peace that is dependent on what is or is not taking place in the content of experience, a peace that is prior to and independent of the content of experience. It is, as such, the peace that passeth understanding. And this peace is the nature of our being, the nature of everyone's being, irrespective of the content of our minds or the condition of our body or our circumstance in the world. All that is necessary is to go deeply into oneself until one arrives, so to speak, at the simple fact of being. Of course, we don't really arrive there. We are that already. But we tend to lose ourselves in the content of experience. And in losing ourselves in the content of experience, we lose touch with our innate peace. So for one who is lost in the content of experience, it is legitimate in the early stages of this investigation to say, come back to yourself, trace your way back through the layers of your experience until you get to the essential, irreducible essence or nature of yourself, the fact of simply being or being aware, which stands, as it were, behind all our experience. Although, of course, later it is recognized to pervade all our experience as well. In other words, it is not just transcendent, it is also immanent. As our being loses the qualities that it derives from the content of experience, it is discovered to be without limits. It's what Rumi meant when he said, flow down and down and down in ever-widening rings of being. As we sink deeper into ourself or our being loses the apparent limitations that it derives from the content of experience, and as such gets wider and wider. It loses its limitations. And at some point there is this simple recognition. My innermost being, that which is most essentially myself, is without limits. In other words, we cannot really say that our being is our being, that is, that our being belongs to us as a person. Our being is prior to the limitations of ourself as a person. We are not, as such, human beings. We are ultimately simply infinite being, clothed in human experience. And of course, the religious name for infinite, impersonal, and yet utterly intimate being is God's being. And God's being shines in each of our minds as the knowledge I am, before what I am is qualified by the content of experience. And it is for this reason that I am is said to be God's name, the divine name. And as our being is divested of the qualities that it derives from the content of experience, we realize that being is unlimited, utterly intimate, and yet unlimited and impersonal. There are not, as such, numerous beings. There cannot be numerous unlimited beings. There is just being, just infinite, impersonal, utterly intimate being. And it is from this being that everyone and everything derives its apparently independent existence. In other words, in the ultimate analysis, there are no separate, independently existing people or things. There is simply one whole, one reality, one being, which appears from our localized and limited perspectives as a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, but which is in reality single, whole, perfect, complete, without any division or without any separation. And this absence of separation or division or otherness is the experience which we as human beings call love or beauty. In other words, the experiences of love and beauty are the recognition that we share our being with everyone and everything. Love is the recognition that we share our being with all people and all animals, and beauty is the recognition that we share our being with all objects and all things, with all of nature. So this single understanding, that is the essence of all the great religious and spiritual traditions, is experienced as peace and joy on the inside, and love and beauty on the outside. And it is for this reason when St. Augustine was asked, what are the moral or ethical implications of your understanding? He simply said, love and do whatever you want. By which he meant, recognize that behind the apparent multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, there lies a single, infinite and indivisible whole or unity. And understand this, feel this, and lead a life to the best of our ability in a way that is consistent with this understanding. If indeed we understand and feel this and live the implications of this understanding in our life, then we have understood the essence of all the great religious and spiritual traditions. and no further instruction or practice would be necessary. And this understanding really, it stands as the foundation of all the great religious and spiritual traditions, although it is expressed, of course, in numerous different ways. In Christianity, for instance, it is said, "I and my Father are one." That is what I essentially am, and what the ultimate reality of the universe essentially is, are one and the same. In Buddhism, it is said that nirvana and samsara are the same. In other words, nirvana, the essence of each of our minds, and samsara, the reality of the appearance of the world, are one and the same. In the Muslim tradition, it is said, La ilaha illallah, which is traditionally translated as, there is no God but God, which could be translated in a more contemporary way as, nothing exists, only being truly is. Now, this is not a nihilistic statement denying reality to things. On the contrary, it is upgrading the reality of things. Instead of imagining that every individual, every person, every animal, everything has its own independent existence, separate from and other than everyone and everything else. This statement recognizes that behind the apparent multiplicity and diversity of people and animals and things, there lies a single, infinite and indivisible whole, whose nature, in religious languages, is God, or spirit, or love, or consciousness. The same understanding is expressed by the Sufis when they say simply, wherever you look, there is the face of God. Wherever we look in our experience, internally or externally, everything is the appearance of one utterly intimate and yet at the same time infinite and impersonal reality. All that is necessary is to understand this, to feel this, and to lead a life to the best of our ability in a way that is consistent with this understanding. God bless.